So hello and welcome to the 17th Annual Town History Series. I'm Jill Pickett-Roy, Archivist and Special Collections Librarian for the Sagadahoc History and Genealogy Room at Patent Free Library. This is the third of 5 presentations in the Town History Series presented on Zoom and Bath Community Television for the first time. The Town History Series is hosted jointly by Patent Free Library and Bath Historical Society. I'd like to thank our financial sponsor for this event, White Mountain Wealth Management of Raymond James, as well as our presenters and their local historical societies. The 17th Annual Town History Series is dedicated to the memory of Russell Malone and Dr. Charles Burden. If you attended last Saturday's presentation, you heard a little bit about Charlie's life. Today, I want to tell you about Russell Malone. Mr. Malone passed away on December 12, 2020. Since coming to Bath in 2009, Russell was active in Sagadahoc Preservation, Inc. and served the Patent Free Library as a donor, corporator, and history room volunteer. I think I would have liked to have met him, and I regret that I didn't have the chance. Through the Town History Series, we learn more about the history of our local communities, but in addition to that, the series is an opportunity to celebrate the people who make our communities so wonderful. I have to go over a few technical details. We will conduct a question and answer session at the end of the presentation using Zoom's Q&A feature. Please feel free to type in your questions at any time. If you need to communicate with me or my co-host Jack Martin about audio-visual issues, please use the Zoom chat function. If we don't answer your question today, or if you would like to discuss the presentation further, we will hold an informal follow-up session with the speaker this Monday, February 1st at 6 p.m. If you haven't registered to receive links for the whole series by email, you must do so on our website in order to participate in the follow-up session. Today's speaker is Jeanne McGowan of Georgetown Historical Society. She has been a volunteer with the Society for 30 years and continues to volunteer even though she recently moved to Bath. Welcome, Jeanne.
Thank you very much, Jill. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Georgetown Historical has participated in the Town History Series since its beginning, and we're grateful to Patent Library, the Sagadahoc History and Genealogy Room, and the Bath Historical Society for keeping this series going during these difficult COVID times. Our presentation is a result of contributions from many people and organizations, and a list of which you will see at the end of the program on the last slide. On behalf of myself and GHS, I say thank you to all of them. As is the case currently for many local volunteer organizations, GHS is closed to the public until it's safe for our volunteers and our visitors to be there. However, in the meantime, if you have research questions or other inquiries or would like to become a GHS member, we always encourage that, and receive our bi-monthly publication of the Georgetown Tide, please contact us by email. That's the best way to do it, at georgetownhistorical@gmail.com. The primary source for today's presentation is a 1981 oral interview of Captain Stin Davis, conducted by 2 GHS volunteers, Ben Burr and Tom Brown. We used that audio interview because what better way to tell Captain Davis's story than in his own words? So while we have work to enhance the audio, please understand and excuse the fact that the remaining background static is still there from a 1981 audio tape. To fill in some of the details, we have added images and also have taken excerpts from other printed interviews. In a few places, you will hear the captain's words, his own words in his own voice. In other places, you will not hear his voice, but you will hear his words. Instead, the voice you will hear is that of Jeanne McGowan. Yes, we are related. The excerpts from Grace Davis's 1920 journal are read by me. And as you might imagine, COVID social distancing has kept this production very close to home. So with that, let's begin. Growing up on an island on the Maine coast, it's unlikely that the sea wouldn't somehow factor into your calculations in life. For Stinson Franklin Davis, that was certainly true. Born to William and Christiana Lewis Davis, Stin arrived on March 18, 1884, in a small farmhouse just a few hundred feet from this spot on the southern tip of Georgetown Island. But in his case, perhaps it wasn't just proximity to the ocean that influenced him. In a 1985 interview, he was quoted as saying, "Father's folks originally came here from Scotland in 1640, and mother's folks came over and settled in Newbury in 1630. I'm almost a native. My grandfather went to sea and married a woman in Dunfree, Scotland, and my father was born there. Then my grandfather was lost at sea. My father was 10 years old when grandmother put him on as a cabin boy on an English sailing ship. Well, in them days, a ship would leave England and might go to Australia and Frisco. It'd be 4 or 5 years before she got back. So when he got back home, his mother had gone to the United States, and that was the last she ever knew of him." This image of the Davis house is circa 1900 to 1910. The identities of the people and the dogs are not yet known. The house was built about 1815 by John Hinckley. The Davis family acquired it from them. Stin was the 7th of 12 children, 4 girls and 8 boys. The Wood School, as it was known then and is pictured here, is where Stin Davis went to school. The state of Maine now maintains it as part of the nearby Reed State Park. This is the 1900 U.S. Census for Georgetown. Listed as living here are parents William and Christiana and 10 of their 12 children, including Stinson, age 16. Not listed are daughters Izetta and Ida, who by then were married. Note that 3 sons, George, William, and Irving, are listed as sailors on sailing vessels. For 4 of the brothers, Will, George, Irving, and Stin, the sea would call. 2 of them, Irving and George, would lose their lives to drowning when still young men.
No, well, go ahead, I'm asking all the questions.
No, I'm very interested in all of it.
Now, I read that you left here at 15.
I left here when I was 16.
16.
15, I was holding drill down that stone quarry. I walked.
I don't know where the stone quarry is. It's over there near Bay Point somewhere?
Yeah, that big hole in there.
Yeah, I never saw it.
Feldspar. Yeah, well, when I was 14, see, I graduated and I got, so I could write my name. And I was going down there to get a job. Charles Brown opened up a little quarry before you get to the Bay Point Road. But it was nothing but it was good feldspar, but it was played right out quick. And I was down there and he was setting down the hole there, holding the drill, and Joel Maines was striking. That's how I happened to go there. And he lived where the hen farm is down on that. What's it, Wilson?
Yeah, John Wilson.
Yeah. And he said, I was looking at him, and he says, "Boy, do you know how to hold a drill?" And I said, "No." "I'll get down there and I'll show you." He was quite fat, an old man, and I started holding the drill, and when it played out, this Maines, they enlarged the quarry and had 2 crews, and they took me down there as drill holder. And I held the drill there. I walked from here, or from down here on where White's house is, 6 miles to the quarry. I worked 10 hours and 6 hours back, 6 miles back home.
Oh my God.
75 cents a day.
Well, it was worth it.
Huh?
It was worth it.
75 cents a day. Was that good money then?
Well,
Did you think-
looked
did you-
pretty big to me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It looked pretty good
Well,
to you.
$1 then was $1. It belonged
Right.
to you.
Yeah,
Now $1's worth 30 cents and it don't even belong to you.
yeah.
So that would be, let's see, you were born 1884.
Yeah.
So it's 14 years. What
That's 1898.
1898,
Yeah.
75 cents a day.
We had hard luck getting our money. Back one time, Mr. Jones went out, he was an Englishman, he went out to the races
Yeah.
when the, not Lipton, but before that. He bet our money on the race.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, and the race didn't win. So I got fed up on that. Finally, we got our money. And one day, the Captain Campbell down here, the schooner, and lugged stone from Stinson to Boston, sell us home, Cutthroat, anything.
Yeah.
And we laid in the harbor there and wanted a man, but I was a boy. I weighed 160 pounds.
You did?
Yeah. So I got the job. And end of the season, when she hauled up, I shipped on a schooner, second mate. Yeah. And in the hard pine trade. So before that, Reed was building the road down to the park. You know, it was down on way to the east of where the road is now.
Yeah.
And Captain said his son was going to come, and he was working on the road. And so I put me ashore and come find out he wouldn't go, so I went back again. So after that, I always went to sea.
Then you-
So I went second mate with my brother. He'd got a vessel. And I went with her till she was lost. They had a lot of hard pines in Florida, and a heavy gale of wind, she sprung a leak and filled up. So we floated round on the thing there, and she rolled on a beam in. Him and I cut the mast out of her, and she came back on her feet again.
According to Captain Davis, the ship was hauling hard pine, and it became waterlogged in a winter gale east of Hatteras. The ship's deck load had gone adrift all around the ship. We hung on that for a couple of days, I guess, out there in the North Atlantic in January. Finally, a steamer could see a light one night. It was snowing and vaporing, and she went by. And I think a couple of days afterwards, we see another one, and I got up 5-10 gallons of kerosene, and we soaked all of our clothes in the clothes bag, and they see it and come down. Our boat was gone, and they took us off and took us to Cuba.
This image of brothers Will and Stin Davis aboard ship probably was taken before 1906. A version of the same image hung on the wall in Captain Davis's house in Georgetown in later years.
One day, Captain had been down home. He didn't have a motor in his boat, but his family was just coming in when somebody come down and hollered for the captain to come ashore. And he went ashore and come off. He said, pack your bag, he said, and go to Boston and take your Henry with him. And that first three master. I said, I don't want no damn vessel yet. He said, you got to make a start sometime. And now I'm going to give you some advice. When you get there, you fire every damn person there is aboard there. And you start, you're the oldest one that's aboard there. Nobody don't say Ben Thomas done this and Ben Thomas done that. So I took her, and he was a big handful. Had about 1,000 tons, no power, no nothing. And I had her till I bought 664, so that's gonna was a salesman, and I didn't have no license. See, anything over 700 gross ton, you had to have a captain's license.
You took a test for that?
Huh?
How did you take a test?
Well, so I left her and I bobbed into this one, and she was south. And I says, the only way I could get out of it was hire some old captain to go mate with me and hold the papers. Well, that didn't sound very good, because he might jack up on you anytime. So I come down home in Williston, and he says, stay home for a few days. And he says, while I'm here, and I said, no, sir. I said, I got to get that damn license. So I went up, and we had to have 3 letters. See? I had a letter from Bliss Company. They were big ship owners. And from my agents, and 1 or 2 others, before you could apply. That's when Custom House was up on Milk Street in Boston. That's when they're building the tower in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they brought out I went up and seen the inspectors. And they brought out a board about that long with the questions and the examples. And you couldn't leave that room until that board was finished. You couldn't run down the street and ask somebody. Well, of course, I'd learned navigation pretty much before. While I was going mate, different captains.
Sure.
And boy, I sweat. I was about 3 days. I think there was 280 and 90 question examples. First, while I was in New York, when I was going to leave the Withington, there was a guy, Huggerty, I think his name, one of school. He was a lieutenant in the Navy for these rich people, yachting people. And I went up and had to talk with him. He had an office there in New York. But the school was closed at the season, and when he got through with me, I went back to Captain Crockett's, my agent, and I said, somebody left, take me home. I said, I don't even know how to get home. Our Crockett said, don't you worry. So I went at him. Yeah, they were just one example. I figured that I couldn't find the answer for. I guessed at everything. I had done everything. Well, I know an old fellow down on Commercial Street on a kind of a school. So I went down, he says, how are you making out up there? And I said, I couldn't, I told the guy, I said, there's only one more and it's 2 o'clock and I'm hungry, I want to get a lunch. Yeah, have a cigar, he said. Sat there and talking, smoking. I said, thanks, I said, I know what it is now. He said, all you got to do is cool down, don't get excited. I went back and done it. He took the papers into the head guy. See, there was inspector of steam and inspector of hulls and everything. So there were 3 licenses, 2 or 3. One was to Cape Hatteras. You couldn't go below that. That's on our back. One was to the equator. In case you go to the equator, you certainly go Cape Horn, but that's where it was. And the 3rd took you around the world.
You had all 3.
See? So I just applied for a license and let them decide.
Right.
So he took it in. After a while, the commissioner called me in. He says, the young clerk, he said, you make him out an unlimited license, sail and steam. I had it.
Yeah.
When I come down Mill Street, I was walking on air.
Did you think you knew enough to sail?
Oh, yeah. I knew all the sailing business.
You did that.
It was a navigation, you see. And I went up there with a Tom's epitome. See? That was some old deep water man that had got up an epitome of navigation with the logarithms and all that stuff. And if you were a half a mile off, it didn't make any difference.
Yeah.
You went up there, and they said, you can't use that up here. You got to get a government epitome. Hell, I never seen one. And I learned on a ham bone. You ever see a quadrant?
Yeah.
Huh? Well, it's about ebony. And the octant is an octant, a quadrant, and a sextant.
Right.
I still got my own sextants here. I paid $25 for it, and I see them advertised for $500.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And a young lad up here went to Castine. He said they're making plastic ones. He said, if you get out in the sun, they'll walk.
Captain Davis spent several years on the Maud Palmer. On a few occasions, his wife Grace and their infant son Edward sailed with him. In the Down East magazine interview, this is how Davis described his ship. The Maud was a heartbreaker of a vessel. She steered hard and slow, and she dragged water. She dragged so bad that once I threw a quart of wood astern of her off Cape Cod, and I'll be blessed if the Maud didn't drag that wood all the way to Bangor. On one of those Maud Palmer trips, when his family was not with him, and on his way home, he met up with a hurricane.
So I sailed her, I loaded salt, Turks Island, 3,000 ton, got in a hurricane. And when the hurricane was over, I had 12, 14 feet of water in her. Fresh water was gone, you were in salt water, and the damn salt was buggering the boiler up all the time. And finally the salt was melting in the bottom, and while she was rolling, you know, and she getting top heavy, had the between decks full, and she'd roll down and stay a little while in the seas and then roll back again. So I told the mate, I said, look here, I said, about 24 hours, this son of a bitch ain't coming up. So I put on the twin deck hatches, bulk was all up in the top, see? So we got down in the hole there up to a chin in the water and cut the hatches out from underneath. So I said, look out now, when that hatches come down, the salt is coming with it. Got the hatches down there just as hard as it could be. We had to get sticks and poke in and get running it down. Then we got so we could get on the deck, and then we cut holes and shovels down, cut holes in the deck and shovel down.
Gee.
When I got into San Juan, Puerto Rico, I had less than 1,000 ton of salt.
And how much you have originally?
Huh?
What did you have in the first place? How much?
3,000 tons.
3,000.
Down to Boston. Ice cream salt, big from Turks Island.
Yeah. Where's Turks Island?
Huh?
Where's Turks Island?
Eastern of Bahamas, way the eastern ones. And
No.
I brought her home to Newport News, and they wouldn't fix her up. And I was standing up, she was twisted. See, when it got so bad, with hold to, I had to keep her off running and keeping sinking on me. And so they sent Bert Wallace out, a friend of mine, to take her, and he went to South America, and when he got up in automobile and got in the Gulf of Mexico, took a hurricane, drowned everybody.
I came off the farm to do Captain Dutton a favor. He called me up to make a trip for him on the Ella Davenport. I took one look at her and I went to the office and said, I'm not going in that thing. She's leaking. Well, you promised to go. They held me to it. I went out in a northeast snowstorm, 3 days, and I was in an awful mess. She got off to Delaware and took heavy snowstorms, a nor'east gale. Boy, then she jumped out of the nor'west and zip it blowed a hurricane. Top gear carried away, I lost some sails, and then the pump played out. That doomed her. I was out there for 2 weeks before she sunk on me. She was shipping water through her topsides, oakum all hanging out. She looked like a dog in the water. I got ready to leave her before it got dark. I knew she'd sink before morning. The steamer picked us up, wouldn't have, but she was off route on account of submarines.
So I got back and went up a broker there that I used to go to, and he says, we got a job for you. I said, I don't want a job. I ain't been home. I said, for near a year, and I got a wife and a baby up in New Hampshire. And well, you go up and see him, talk to him. I said, all right, just You have to wait for the train anyhow. So I went up to 25th Street, big mahogany house. So I went in, Christ, told the girl who I was. Called up Dad. Finally they said, all right, you go up. I went up. Right, they had an office up there, about half an acre. And the president, when I went to talk to him, now he said, we've just bought a vessel that was dismasted in a hurricane. You ever get in a hurricane? They blow. I says, Mister, let me start in fresh. I says, I ain't been to home for near a year. And I said, I'm going home. Well, he talked and talked. Well, he said, she's over to Hoboken. She's in line dried out. Now, I said, why don't you go and look at her? I knew it. She was Moss built her up here, the boss, Charles Moss, that crook. And a man down in Jersey bought her, and she was a Charles Campbell then. Well, I said, too late for the train anyhow. I said, all right, I'll go over. So I went over and I walked down to the shipyard and I took my boat to the water. Here was a mast, a rigging. Hatches were stowed in. Snow was about that deep on them. Well, what a sight, what a sight. I turned right around and get the ferry and went back. He said, you'll come back? And I said, yeah, I'll come back all right. He said, what do you think of it? I said, that's the worst sight I ever see. Oh, we're going to fix her up. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do the other. Well, we talked and talked. And he had time to talk. I didn't talk. I said, I want to go home. I said, anyhow. And he says, I'll tell you what to do. If you will take her, he said, you send and get your wife and baby. You can go to any hotel there is in New York, and we'll pay all the bills. Well, hold on, I said, you're going too fast. I ain't going to send it for her. So we talked, and the wages at that time was about $300 a month for a cabin. And she was going in the mahogany trade in Africa. So we're talking, he says, what would you, if you went in, how much you charge? Oh, I said, if I went in there, I should want at least $300 to $350 a month. Well, he said, what is it, 300 or 350? Well, naturally, I said it would be 350. Well, we talked some more, and I said, all right, I'll take her. Now he said, send for your wife and baby. So I sent for her in wartime then, World War I. She was supposed to get there at 6 o'clock, and of course the Army had control of everything. I sat in Grand Central from 6 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning before she drove in. Down in New York, you couldn't get onto the train, you know. There was a great fence there with doors, you know. You had to wait outside.
Yeah.
I looked through there, and here come a wife. The suitcase, the handle had busted, and she was trying to drag it, and he was screeching. She said, my Lord, we ain't going aboard of a vessel tonight, are we? I said, we are not. I got a cab, and we went down to the McAlpin Hotel. And I said, you stay here, which I stay here tonight, and then you stay here till you see me again. I'll go up and see Williams. And anyhow, that was too far away from me, because I'd have to commute from Hoboken to. So there's a nice German hotel there in Hoboken, and I got a private room for her and bath and everything, and took her there. I stayed there from January till April.
Captain Stin Davis took command of the refurbished ship, now named the Mattawack, from her home port of New York. The certificates read, Stinson F. Davis, Master of Schooner Mattawack, Seaman Certificate of American Citizenship. One reads 24 January 1918 and the other 27 September 1918, New York City. He sailed the Africa trade for 7 years. The United States entered World War I in April 1917. Those traveling in war zones needed U.S. Customs war zone passes as identification. Travel in and out of ports was of particular concern. According to Davis family descendants, Mrs. Davis was not fond of her photo.
I had half my cargo was for Loan as a captain. Where to the South Africa there, the Cubans had been fighting there. Portuguese. Angola.
Yeah, Angola.
I had half it for there. Then I discharged that. And I went up the Congo River. It was bound, my orders was Banana Creek at the port of entry. But the cargo was bound way up there, Amazon, not Amazon, but what you call it, hundreds of miles. Had missionary stores. I had white trucks. I had Plymouth automobile. I had everything you could name. And it was all bound up there. Matadi, Boma and Matadi up to the falls. Livingston Falls, I think it's called. And they wouldn't accept the cargo down. I had when I was down Angola, out of Central America in Mahogany, the agent put a case of Scotch whiskey aboard. There's British Honduras, and I was going down to San Juan del Norte, that's Nicaragua, way down. So he says, you see any friends down there? Well, you give them a drink on me. So I didn't see anybody down there, so I friend anybody, so I kept it. Well, that was in the spring, and this is the next year, and I hauled it out, opened it, and took a couple bottles and went ashore. Well, I got him 3 or 4 drinks into him, and no, he said, I wouldn't dare to, he said, the English government. And I got him pretty well lubricated, and he said, you bring your man assessed, sure, so I can look at it. That's a list of your. I had when I was down Angola, I don't know.
Captain Davis stopped working the Africa trade to sail schooners for trade to Europe. The last vessel Davis had in the European trade was the Tolima. On board with Captain Davis and the crew was his wife Grace and their son Edward. Living on board the schooner did have its light moments. Here are images of Grace and Stin sharing a laugh and their son Edward showing off his catch. In William L. Pohl's book, The Voice of Maine, Captain Davis recollects the return voyage of a 1920 trip to Lisbon, Portugal on the Tolima with his family.
I was coming back across the Atlantic in hurricane season, and Jesus, I run right into one. It was making the swing. What's it like in a hurricane? Hell. They swing around in a circle. In the middle of the eye, a windless vacuum. Everything inside is clean, with a blue sky above. But you get in there and the seas are piling up all around you, on all sides of the compass. It's hard to tack right, so you're coming up to the waves. On the wrong tack, you'll roll sideways into the troughs of the sea, and it will pile to hell all over you. When that happened, you had to rush to put your head plumb up against the sides of the cabin house, where the waves would knock you and crack your head like an eggshell. It was safer up in the riggings in a gale. less of a chance of getting washed overboard. But with the snow and sleet, it was cold.
Grace Davis kept a journal during the voyage, and while the early months were filled with travelogue commentary, what follows are excerpts from that journal about the hurricane they faced on the way home across the North Atlantic. September 6, 1920. Had a very hard wind today and quite a sea. They took in all the sails but the main jib. Edward and I stayed below most of the time. September 11th. Began to blow hard from southwest about 4 a.m. Stin had all the sails taken in but the main jib. The wind blew so hard it blew the spray on the deck. Edward and I stayed in the spare room and sat on a mattress on the floor, for we might have rolled out of bed. The furniture slid around and the drawers underneath the bunk came out. It really was a hurricane. One sea hit the yawl boat and bent the davit and broke the rail to the vessel. We managed to get out to eat our meals, but it wasn't real pleasant eating. Edward wasn't frightened at all. We slept on the floor that night. I couldn't sleep very well, with so much rolling and banging. Stin occasionally got a little nap by lying on the Morris chair cushions on the floor. The wind went down some next morning, but there was still quite a sea. Edward and I didn't leave our coop until afternoon. The spray came on deck, so Stin scraped salt off the compass next morning. I am not fussy about seeing another hurricane. September 16th. Old Sane has been laid up for 4 days. He's taken a lot of pills, too many. And one morning he came to Stin for some medicine, said his teeth were all loose and his jaw ached. He didn't know, but he had diphtheria. Stin asked him if his throat was sore, but it wasn't. Well, Captain, I don't know, but I have lockjaw. Would you look it up in the book and see maybe I have? He took a dish of alum water and went forward. Last night Mike came and said Sane wanted some medicine, for he had a fever and headache, but didn't want the captain to send any salts. Edward has braided enough sinnet for a rug. We're almost up to Nova Scotia. No fair winds seem to come our way. Nothing but headwinds and calm. September 17th. Came inside a Jedor headlight on the Nova Scotia coast, but couldn't make Halifax, so we turned around again. 3 men are sick, mate Tony and Sane. There was quite a sea going. September 18th. Headed for Nova Scotia. Stin wanted to make a harbor. The sand has got into the pumps during the hurricane and plugged them up. The engineer's tank is low too. The harbors here are rocky and hard to get into unless one's familiar with them. Stin was up all night. The wind wasn't favorable to take us in anywhere. We sighted Cape Canso this morning and came up round it. Stin is going to take the vessel into Port Hawkesbury. The mate came on deck and stayed until 8 p.m., but didn't show up for his next watch. September 20. All day long we've been beaten back and forth in the bay. Headwinds continually. Another 4-masted schooner has been with us all day. None of the sick men have shown up. Finished up my blue dress, all but pressing. The engineer's taken a man's place, and it helps out some.
When the hurricane ended, I was within 50 miles of where it started, but I sailed in a big circle. Some of the crew was sick. I had a Russian mate, then he kind of went crazy. So I put into Port Hawkesbury, Cape Breton, and got him to a hospital. Then I got a new crew to bring the ship to North Fork. I sent my family home from Cape Breton. For a long time, my wife had been talking about settling down. That's why she bought the farm up in Whitefield, New Hampshire. And sailing vessels were getting to be of no more in demand than horses are today. So in the end of that particular voyage seemed like a good time to quit. You could say my last hurricane blew me so far ashore that I stayed there.
Stin Davis left the sea, but he didn't retire. He became a dairy farmer in his wife Grace's native New Hampshire. It was not work he preferred, and with the Depression, it was hard to just break even. He said, I was in New Hampshire about 18 years too long. If I'd taken that deed to the farm out on the road and given it to the first tramp that come along, I'd been money ahead. As World War II broke out, Stin Davis got work as a rigger at the Kittery Navy Yard, where his son Edward was a coppersmith. After several years, he returned to Georgetown to the house at the head of Harmon's Harbor that he'd purchased for his mother decades earlier. In the early 1950s, he became head ranger at the newly opened Reed State Park. Walter Reed, Georgetown native and successful businessman, had donated hundreds of acres to establish the park. Interestingly, Reed was the man to whom Stin's father, William Davis, had sold the family's farmhouse in 1904. Much of what was that Davis land is now in the park. When required to retire from state service at age 70, Stin Davis went to work as a caretaker on Malden Island, a summer colony which sits in Five Islands Harbor in Georgetown. He commuted by boat across a short stretch of water. It was a job he held for more than 2 decades, working alongside his nephew, Lloyd Pinkham. Age was no impediment for Captain Davis, whether it was at a ship's helm or in a car. This blurb comes from the GHS March-April 1982 Georgetown Tide. Kudos to Captain Davis. Georgetown's #1 captain proves that his navigational skill isn't confined to sailing a saucy ship on the ocean blue. Stin passed his road test with flying colors just before his 98th birthday, March 18th. In 1958, Grace, his wife of 45 years, died. Stin went on to live another 29 years. Both she and Captain Davis are laid to rest in Oak Cemetery in Georgetown. But laid to rest might be the wrong term for this man. At the end of the previously referenced Down East article, Captain Davis said, "Well, I'm going back to the island to work. There's always something needs doing, and I've got no more use for loafing than I have for ships without sails." When asked, did he ever loaf for long, he replied, "Tell the truth, loafing's one thing I don't believe I've ever tried."